Well, welcome back to the Healthy Christian Leader Show. I'm Dwight Habermehl, and I have my guest and privilege to have her here today, my wife, Kristen Habermehl. And we've been just sharing and talking about the journey of faith, and particularly right at the moment we've been talking about the child years. And now that journey of faith continued on as our kids begin to grow and mature. How did you see faith applied as they started to move into their teen and young adult lives?
Good question. I think faith has been a constant part of every part of our journey. And I think if we try to get to the point when we don't need to rely on our faith, we're probably not in sync with what God's doing, because it really has evolved from the very early days on to watching the kids grow up, and now they're pretty much all independent, as you know. And faith just changes in the way we apply it, but I don't feel like I've ever hit a point when, I can put this aside now, it's good. It's very much knowing that we're always trusting God for new things. And the older our kids get, the less influence, the less control we have, maybe is better than influence. Not that we tried to control them when they were little, but we certainly were able to...
Less management.
Choose their friends, choose the events, decide what we were doing and what we were reading and where we were going. And it was, the things we trusted the Lord for were huge because everything was a learning curve for us. But looking back, of course, at this stage, it seems simpler because of all the things we've gone through together. But it has just changed over the years, and I think it's richer. I feel like, especially for me as a mom and now a grandma, it's very different because we've continuously given our kids over to the Lord day after day, moment by moment, year after year. And I feel like you get to the point where you see God be so faithful that even though there's things that we're trusting Him to provide for each of them, and we want to see God do things for them because we know the intimate stories that they're experiencing, there's a richness.
And it's not always a cakewalk.
No, not for any of us. Absolutely.
No.
But there's a richness because now we have this whole history built up of watching God's faithfulness, that it doesn't make it easier at this stage. But in a way, it's more exciting because there's more confidence that God's going to move. I would say when we were younger and the kids were little, you were believing God would move, but you were still kind of like, I'm not sure how you're going to pull this off, God, so hopefully you come through. Whereas now, I know things aren't going to look the way maybe I want them to, or the way that I would even expect them to, but I know God's going to do what He needs to do. And there's such a rest and a confidence in knowing that God, who's been faithful to you and me over the last 30 years, is just as faithful to each of our kids and the things that they face. And, as we watch them go through things and we get to be part of their lives, we continue to intercede and pray for them just like our parents did and have done for us. And I know when your dad passed on, I remember so vividly recognizing the gap that left in our lives because he was such a man of faithful prayer over us, and we felt the difference when he left. And so I hope that we can be that for our kids, that they know we love them and that we're standing with them and believing for God's best for them. I think that's another part of faith that I've come to appreciate, is I have no idea what God's best is for any of our kids. I just know He's made them incredibly. I think they're amazing. I am the most blessed mom in the world. I absolutely adore all 5 of our kids, and now 2 incredible in-laws and a grandchild. Like, it gets better and better and more incredible. But as we apply faith to all of those relationships, there's just so much more rest that God is going to be faithful to them just like He has been to us. And it's a joy to get to be in this season.
Now, I've often shared with others when talking about the development of faith. I can remember sitting down with Matthew, our nephew, and talking about faith development and how it's, God will toss you a 5-pound weight and say, okay, now lift this. And it's a real struggle with that 5-pound weight. And then all of a sudden, God says, okay, well, you've done well, now try this, and throws a 10-pound weight, and you keep benching the things that God brings along. And then, before you know it, you're benching 300 pounds. Now, God, in our season, I remember very specifically God saying, okay, Dwight, now you've trusted for your need. I want you now to learn how to trust for the needs of others. And, and basically you've learned how to trust for what you don't have. Now I want you to walk in faith with what you do have. And we shifted gears, like God called us out of local church ministry and out of that planting work. And he called us into a work of encouraging leaders across our province in local churches. And we've done that now for 25 years, I believe, which is incredible. But he put us in a situation where, we felt like the Lord was saying, okay, I built decks at that time to put food on the table, and said, Lord, pastors don't swing hammers. Why do I have to do this? Grew up in the construction industry, so I knew how to do it. But the Lord basically said, put your hand to this and I'll bless that. And he did. Today, as we, have grown along, we have a design build company that God's blessed us with, and with, a large staff that are building multiple homes and designing multiple homes at a time, which is, we have to put faith there. Apply faith there in business. You have a consulting company now. At the time when you were wondering, okay, well, what's the next season after kids? There was a season of shift, and the kids were at a stage where they kind of had become independent on their own, and you were now looking at what you might do, with the next season of your life. Like, how did faith come into play in that circumstance? Because that's a totally amazing story.
Yeah, it's another way God just opens doors you don't expect him to. I remember, again, being home with 5 kids and faithfully doing what I felt I was called to do, and we were homeschooling, and we were truly enjoying it's all I ever wanted in life, and I was so thankful for it. And I can remember very vividly the Lord I was worshiping one day. I was alone in the vehicle, which rarely happens, so it really stands out to me. And there was a very specific song on, and he was ministering as this gentleman was leading worship, and he said that God will open doors and put you in places that you will even have prepared for when the time comes. And I just had such a sense in my spirit. God really marked that moment as just be faithful in the now, and I've got something new and different for you later. And again, it just, opportunities opened, doors opened, things I know that I don't deserve. It's just been God being so kind and gracious, and it's opened avenues of learning and growing for me that I never would have imagined having, but I absolutely love what I get to do and be part of, and it puts me with the most incredible people I could ever hope to work with, which is one of my favorite things.
So now, Kristen, we've talked about the child rearing years, and we've, earlier when I was introducing you, we talked about the fact that you are a consultant in accessibility, and you do that throughout our province and our country, and once in a while beyond even that. What role does faith play in your everyday life? And why is it important to you to reflect and rely upon God's promises in your day to day? Because I know, I see you every morning there with the Word open. Tell us about that journey.
Well, as you know, God's Word is very important to me, and I feel like the day isn't properly started unless I've had that time, even if it means getting up earlier than what I choose. As you know very well, I don't love mornings, but I've been getting up early for 27 years, so that's just life. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely been part of the foundations of faith all through. And I think day to day is just grounding myself daily. I can't believe after this many years of every day being in the Word of God, how I need to be refreshed the next morning. There's just not a day that I can open up the Word and say, oh, I don't need this today. I know myself better than to say I don't need it. I need God to speak to me. I need to be reminded of His promises, of His faithfulness, of the ways that He will show up, whether I see it or not. And how often you and I have talked about the times that God is able to have given us something in the morning we didn't even know we were going to need later in the day. And so I think that's day to day. It's my 99-year-old copy of Streams in the Desert that I open after I've been in the Word, that my Nana's, and reading the timeless words of faith. Just the other day, there's no shortcut to a life of faith. I think we've lived that. We've experienced God's faithfulness as we are faithful to keep ourselves close to Him. He's close to us.
Yeah, you just can't live on yesterday's fuel
No.
in the Word. It's a constant. I like the word appropriating what is true. Like, we need to be reminded, refocused, and go into the day appropriating what's true.
Yeah.
And it is amazing how specific God can get, in the Word. Like, how many times have you emailed me a word that was specific to something we're walking through? And that becomes the lifeline that we literally hang from as we walk through whatever it is we have to walk through at a given particular time. Well, Kristen Habermehl, folks, my wife, a wonderful Christian lady who's walked by faith, come from a heritage of faith. And Kristen, it's been wonderful to be able to have this interview. And we're going to get a chance to have another session together. And so folks can watch for it on the Healthy Christian Leader Show, because it'll be coming up. And I know folks will be looking forward to that. So we'll see you next time, folks, on the Healthy Christian Leader Show. Well, thanks for joining this conversation. I trust that you were encouraged and challenged by the stories and experiences that were shared today. Would you join us next week? You can find new episodes weekly in video form on the Aaron Ministries YouTube page and in audio form wherever you get your podcasts. Aaron Ministries is an interdenominational network of friends in ministry with a mission to foster healthy Christian leadership. Check out our website, aaronministries.com, for more information and resources, and on how you can donate to our ministry and potentially start a Healthy Christian Leader gathering in your area. Until we meet again, may you experience the Lord's blessing, grace, and peace. I'll see you next week.